The next thing I'd like to talk about is strings. Strings is a type which is extremely important in Python and in many other programming languages. If before we used only the numerical types, for example, we use integer type, right? I can ask for the type of y, and it's int. Well, there could be also types to use words to, and this is the string type. So let me introduce x as 2, but in quotation marks. If I ask for x, it prints it in quotation marks, and if I ask for the type of x, the type will be string. And well, by the way, it's important that here we used double quotation marks, but the output says the single quotation marks, and it actually doesn't matter. You can use either single quotation marks or double quotation marks. They have the same meaning in Python. So you can introduce z as, let's say, 3 in single quotation marks. What you shouldn't be doing, and you should not use different types of quotation marks in one expressions. It will give you an error. We used the strings before. For example, when we did print hello world, this hello world was a string, and that's why we had to put it in the quotation marks. If we did not use the quotation marks here, Python would have interpreted that as some variable names and would have given us an error, because we don't have variable hello, we don't have variable world, and also, well, you can just simply put a space in between. So there you can do various different operations on strings similar to operations on numbers. For example, well, if with numbers we could add 1 and 2, and the result would be obviously 3, well, we can add the string 1 to the string which says 2. Guess what the result would be? It would be 1, 2. So this operation is called concatenation, when we add one string to another string. And let's, it doesn't have to be numbers. For example, we can have A equals hello and B equals world, and A plus B would be hello world. Well, obviously it didn't add a space in between because we didn't ask it to add a space. Well, we can have written A plus space plus B, and then we would have gotten hello world string. What we've done before, we've used the command print, which outputs our string. If I say print A plus B, it would just print me this hello world. And this print function, it can work both with strings and other types, right? So I can, for example, what was my variable with integer type? I had this variable y, right? I can do print y, and it will print me my integer number which it stores. Well, in addition to outputting data, it's important to input the data, and in particular, you can read the user's input using the command input. Let me give you an example. So let me introduce a variable word and read the input, the user input from keyboard. So once I execute this code, Python would ask me to input something, right? So it waits till I put something in this line and press enter. For example, I can say hello. Press an enter. Well, and now my variable word has the word hello in it. So I can do print word. It prints me this word hello. What's important is that the input function, it reads variable into it reads the input into a string variable. Let me give you an example where it is important. For example, I want to introduce a variable number and read a number from a keyboard in input. And let's say user enters 2021. All right, so now the number is 2021. What would be 2021 plus 1, right? I can say number plus 1, number plus 1, and it will give me an error, because although we call this variable number, it's actually not a number, it's a string. So this is a string. You cannot concatenate a string with an integer. You can only concatenate string to a string. So you can do, for example, number plus, let's say, word year, right? And it will say 2021 year. So interestingly, you can convert a string to number. Now, of course, well, I can say my, let me call this variable integer number, and this will be int, the function we used before, applied to the variable number. And if I now look at what I have in my int number, it will be 2021 without the quotation marks, right? So it will be an integer number. And well, for this one, you can obviously use all the operations we used before on integers. So I can add 1 to it. I can divide it by 2. Well, that's float division. I can divide it by 2 using integer division. Pretty much whatever I want. So the next thing we're gonna do with strings, we can actually get the length of the string. So the function len, if you apply it to a string, let's say my string number, it returns the length, right? It has 4 characters. This string had 4 characters. Let me go back to it. So the length is 4. If I try to apply length to the 2021 when it's an integer number, it will give me an error because the length is applied to string only and not to integers. Well, interestingly, strings can actually, we can do some simple mathematical operations on strings. For example, we can multiply strings. So once again, my number is 2021, and I can write number times 3. What I get as a result, I get this string replicated 3 times. So, well, it's obviously a very different result compared to operation in the integer number 2021. So, which will give you what an integer should give. So, this operation, however, cannot be performed with floats. So if I do that, you can't multiply sequence by float number. You can only replicate a string an integer number of times. So the next thing is indexing strings, and that's extremely important. You can actually get different elements of your string. So if your string, once again, is your string variable is called number, you can actually find the first element of a number, the second element of a number, and so on. So to call the first element of a number, well, you have to call number, then in square brackets 0. And this is a typical C++ notation. So all the arrays, all the strings, and so on, all the sets of elements, they start from the 0th element instead of the first one. So the first element would be this 0. Let me use a different example so that I don't confuse you with numbers. Let me call it my string and use the word hello. So if I index my string 0, I will get the letter H. If I call my string 1, I will get the second element, which is the letter E. And if I call so it has totally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, I can apply my length to my string to understand how many elements I have. Moreover, I can give a new variable. Let me introduce a variable n, for example, which will be the length of my string. And if I want to get the last element, what should I do? I need to do my string, and then, well, if I do n, I'll get an error, because the last element would be actually not nth, but n minus 1, and that would give me a letter O. Well, there is another way to refer to the last element in the string. You can actually index it by -1. And you can start indexing from the end, and you can do my string -2. It will give you the second from the end element in your string.